icon up here to make sure I clicked the record. It wouldn't be the first time that I forget. Okay. I'm not going to go through this whole syllabus with you because you could give a rip on most of it. You want to know two things: how I grade and how to get a hold of me. Okay. Everything else you can download the syllabus. Okay. Sierra Ferguson 8 at Sierra.edu is my email address. You can click within Canvas, you can click on Messenger and also communicate with me that way. Class starts at noon, goes to approximately one something. Frequently, it'll be like 110, 105, 150. It varies. So I'm not going to go exclusively to 120 every single day and then stop. Lab is right after lecture. Then we finish lecture at 1 o'clock. Lab is at 1:05. Okay. Not going to wait till 1:30. You can have lab will follow lecture. Come on in. And there's seats over there. Yeah.
I was wondering, what about lunch? So there's no break between the lab and like the demo one?
No, you can eat in class though.
Oh,
Can't eat in the lab, but you can eat in here.
oh,
Good point. You can eat and drink in here. Now, I have no problem with that as well. Okay. Sometimes I occasionally have blood sugar issues. Not very often, but occasionally. So,
excuse me.
but sometimes I may have a break and it'll be something, but normally I'm fine. Okay, here's my phone number. If you'd like to text me or call me for whatever reason, texting, you get a pretty quick response, like usually really fast response. And I have no problem you texting me. If you have a problem with something and you want me to go over it with you, don't text me. Okay, send me an email and take a picture of the problem. So otherwise, it's really hard to help you with the problem. So I don't know what you're thinking. Okay, now what's weird, every semester, without exception, I have people that are confused about the lecture schedule. We meet twice, Friday and Saturday for lecture. And you meet once, either Friday or Saturday, depending on what you signed up for. Now, the good news, because I have a lot of dropouts in this class, we have a lot of flexibility in what lab you're in. So if you're signed up for lab Friday and something should come up like job related or whatever, and you need to be in Saturday lab, this is what you do. You go to Saturday lab. You don't need to ask. It'd be good if you and your partner, you have a lab partner, you and your lab partner can coordinate and both go to the other one, just so that you're together and used to working with one another. That's the unofficial way, is just to go. The official way is you have to drop that section, which is going to cost you money, and then add the other section. So administratively, it's a real pain, and it costs you money. My way is free. You do it. Okay? You don't have to ask permission. Let's do it. Particularly in the first couple of weeks that we're doing dry lab. Now, when we get to dry labs, you can do the dry lab in the lab, or you can go outside the lab and do it, and you can also do it at home. A combination there. Now, today, we mentioned earlier, today is going to be a short day because of the weather, and tomorrow's going to be a short day. And fortunately, we have a dry lab today, so it's not a big deal. The Foothill is supposed to get, by Sunday, you're supposed to get, depending on where you live, up to 5 inches of rain. That is a lot of rain. And so depending on where you are, your situation, what kind of, road you live off of, et cetera. So anyway, try to be respectful of that. It's gonna be short. Okay, okay, as far as mandatory stuff. Nice. There's an old, very old expression. It's called "live by the sword, die by the sword." Okay. Now again, this is a preparatory class. It's designed to prep you for Chem 1A, Chem 2A, Chem 3A. Okay. Now some people don't go on from here, but if you do go on from here, those are the classes this class is designed to prep you for. Now, there's some requirements for this class that are no exceptions. Most of them are lab related. You need to pick up the lab manual. How are we doing at the bookstore? Do they still have stock of a lab manual?
Yes, my teacher was. My teacher was. My.
I went this morning that had quite a big stack.
Oh, cool. If by chance we run out, I'll supply you with an electronic copy. Don't worry. Safety goggles. You need to have chemical splash proof safety goggles when we have a wet lab. So we've got 4 weeks before our first wet lab, which is on next day. No exception, you have to look goggles in there. Okay. The ones I suggest are Uvex. Oh, here, let me just write on here. Uvex Stealth. Do not go to Home Depot and buy $4 chemical splash proof goggles. They are not acceptable because they don't work very well. And over at Sac City, we did huge tests on goggles, and unless you pay like $11 or more for goggles, they don't work very well. And the sealing is a big issue with the cheap ones. They just don't seal very well. So you kind of get what you pay for. Also, a lot of people come up to me and they have shop goggles. They have holes in the side of the goggle. Those are great if you're in their garage on a drill press. They don't work with a darn in chemistry class or a biology class or even a physics class where there's a possibility of getting splashed on. Now, when I was teaching up in Washington, I had a colleague who's in the lab next to me. He runs over. Now, this guy is like 6'8", red hair, big giant guy. And he's pink from here up, bordering on red. And he was collecting some hydrogen gas over an acid in a test tube. And what happened is the balloon he probably bought at Walmart broke and splashed his face and neck with this acidic water. Okay, the only place that wasn't red were his around his goggles. Had he not been wearing those goggles, it would have been splashed in the face. So actually, I've never had a student accident. I am the safety Nazi. I'm sorry to tell you. I'm really big on safety. My students have been safe over the years. You need a scientific calculator. Now, the one I recommend is the TI 36. The main thing is you need exponential notation. What exponential notation means is an E key on your calculator. Your phone's scientific calculator sometimes has an EE key and sometimes it doesn't, depend on what application you're on. So if you haven't bought a scientific calculator yet, there's a number of Texas Instruments calculators that have the EE key on it. This is a particularly nice one, and it's about the same price as all the others. There's Casio versions as well. Casio, I think, are harder to use than Texas Instruments. But if you have a Casio already, we can make it work. Okay, now this is from another teacher saying that gravity calculators are not allowed on exams. The reason for that is you can store information in your calculator. Now, there's a simple way around that. It's called clear memory. If you have a TI 83, 84, 89, you show it to me that you clear memory and you can use it. It's fine. However, that's not the guarantee your next class will allow it. So if you're going to buy one of those, just be forewarned that, and for sure in your pre-calc or calculus class, they won't allow you to use it. So, but as far as I'm concerned, if you're clever enough to figure out how to code your little information in your calculator, it's really silly, in my opinion. So, but anyway, and it takes 10 seconds to clear memory in the calculator. Very easy to do. Okay. Need a lab coat. I have a tie-dye lab coat. I'm a child of 60. Now, about 4 years ago, I had a student who organized a group in a lab to tie-dye their lab coat. And I thought that was a cool idea. So ever since then, I've been allowing students to tie-dye their lab coat, and I give them extra credit. So if you'd like to do that, you're more than welcome. I encourage you to do it. I think it's really kind of cool. Typically, half the class will tie-dye their lab coats. I mean, half the class. When they, like, theoretically, I'm supposed to be evaluating this semester. I haven't heard, but I'm due. So, so when they come into my lab, they see instead of a sea of white coats, they see a sea of tie-dye coats, which is really cool. Yeah. So anyway, and basically, if you miss a lab, that'll make up for it. So, and if you go the whole term and haven't missed the lab and you tie-dyed your lab coat, you have the option of I'll just give you an extra point. Now, I'm going to talk about extra credit for tests as well in a minute. Okay, so as far as lab goes, goggle, lab coat, calculator you need for both lab and lecture. Goggles, there's a good chance I have extra goggles that you can quote unquote borrow forever. If you don't mind, use goggles. They typically have minor scratches and I mean maybe clean, of course. Although usually we clean them in the back room. So we started doing that last year. So I still recommend you clean it yourself. So if anyone's interested, let me know. Okay, so are there any questions about this? Yeah.
Is this the textbook that says Sierra College Custom Edition as necessary factors? Is it okay if I buy my hands on?
Yes, absolutely. And make sure it's really old and beat up.
Okay.
The best time to write a textbook for class is in the middle of the semester before. What you do is you go online, and I tested this out about and I was able to buy that textbook for that class for $4. And it looked like it'd been through the Civil War, which was fine. You still read it. And I was able to sell it, quote unquote, for $12 for the next semester. So I made money by doing that. So just keep that in mind. Money's tight. You can easily find out the published textbook, and you don't have to get the current version. Textbook manufacturer would love you to buy always whatsoever the newest and greatest. There's the newest pictures and chemistry is chemistry. It doesn't change that much. Okay, all right. All right, you're going to have a number of opportunities for points. Notice there's no participation points up here. A lot of teachers take attendance for points. You are not in middle school. I can tell you this. You pass this class by passing the tests and doing the lab. That's how you pass this class. Now, if you never come to lecture and only come to class for the tests, and you get an A on all the tests, fine. I don't really, more power to you. You're not required to come to class. You're required to come to wet labs. The reason for that is it's impossible to make up a wet lab because all the chemicals have to come back out and the lab personnel are way longer to fit it. So, the way to make up for a wet lab is to tie dye your coat. You can do that anytime during the semester. Doesn't have, we have a President's Day holiday coming up in a couple of weeks. That'd be a good time to do it. Let's see. I think there's around 12 labs. Anyway, we're 10 points each. And you have two super easy ways to get 20 points. It'll take you maybe 15 seconds a piece. A piece now. I mean, that's a 30-second commitment. Basically, we have a lab contract and a district waiver. You download them, sign it, scan it, upload them. Muy fácil. Very easy. Easiest 10 points you're ever making this class. Okay, so there are two kinds of points in here. I don't differentiate between easy points and hard points. So maximize your lab point. Because those are going to be, lab points require work, but not hard. It's a matter of timing. Yes, you know about that. That's the hard point. You want to maximize your easy points, you'll get your hard point. Notice 89.5 will get you an A. That means I round. A lot of teachers don't round. I do. So if you can get an 89 point, so your goal in here, if you want an A, is to get 89.5. If you get a 95, you still get an A. But it's more work. So, an easy way to funk a class is to not come to lab. This is a lab class. You're required to pass lab to pass the class. And believe me, I have had students who challenged me. And then went to the dean, and the dean said, "Have you read the syllabus?" Up in I used to teach at Tacoma Community College, and I had this group of students that were just, they loved to play bridge. But the student center, they were in the middle of a bridge game, a lab came up, playing bridge. Now, I like to play bridge too, though. This one guy in particular is getting an A minus. An A minus. You got a caption of because he didn't he had some in the easy one, not crazy. So anyway, you've got to pass lab to pass the class. Okay, notice it says unit exams, final exams. Final exam is really like a unit exam. what I do is, it's not totally comprehensive. It focuses on the last two units. Now, I've changed the units around. I have 5 units. What I'm doing is taking unit 2 and teaching that last. We're gonna go unit 1, then unit 3, 4, 5, 2. And the reason for that is the emphasis. The hardest part of this class is the last 2 weeks of this class. And then it's usually cut short because of other things. So what I'm gonna do is maximizing the time you spend in those last focus 2 weeks. When we're doing it earlier, so we have more time. Okay, any questions about grading? Now, I try to turn around your tests. By the way, on tests, I don't do multiple choice and I do true and false. Everything is fill in. And the reason why you fill in is because my students do better. They get partial credit. Multiple choice is right or wrong. Boom. True or false, right or wrong. But with partial credit, I can give you some partial credit depending on how you're doing. Now, as the day unfolds today and tomorrow, you're gonna see how I can get partial credit. Something called a setup for the problem. If the problem is set up correctly, but you messed up your calculator, multiple choice, you get the problem wrong, even though the setup is perfect. In my class, 90% of the points for that question are based on the setup. So if the problem's worth 10 points, that means 9 of the 10 points is based on your setup. If you screw up your calculator or whatever, you lose 1 point out of 10. You can get an A in this class without even using your calculator. 90%, right?
Hey, right. Okay, so let me see. I think that's it. Now I've got homework is in the term of dry labs. Those are worksheets you get credit for. Now I have a ton of worksheets, a ton. And they're available, I'm going to show you in a minute here. They're available on Canvas under files by unit. And a lot of people learn better by repetition, like me, for example. I play a number of different instruments, and I have not memorized one song. I know what it is. I can play it 200 times. So I learn by repetition, and I'm assuming my students do too. So because of that, I give you lots of practice. Now, there's 2 ways to do that. You can do it digitally, or you can do it via paper and pencil. Students like paper and pencil. That's why I have them available online. Download, take your pencil and your big giant eraser, best friend in this class, get the white kind of eraser, if you haven't got one yet, and that's what you do. Erase and use a white eraser, erases completely. They're magic. And by the way, they last forever. I found out about these erasers about, I don't know, 12, 15 years ago, and a student had left one on their desk for, I don't know, a month or so, so I just claimed it. And I started using it, so great. They still have that eraser. They don't wear out. They're like $3 or $2.50, something like that. They're wonderful. And that's the kind you always get on the top of your mechanical pencil that always wears out within 2 days. Yeah, so save your little bitty erasers and get the big one. So I give lots of worksheets. Or I should say, I'll give worksheets that are available. Okay, now I'm going to talk when we get into lab about lab protocol. And the lab protocol applies to wet labs only, not dry labs. Makeup exams. Usually, there's no makeup on a test exam. So what I do is I allow your final exam in place of your test you have to make up. let's say you got a B in your final and you missed a test, that test you missed would also be a B. And that gets us, um, and I'm not gonna ask you why you missed the test, you know, do you have a doctor's note or something silly like that? No, if you missed the test, you missed the test, okay? And there's no makeup on wet labs additionally as well. Okay, this is what the front end of our lab schedule looks like. So today we're going to do, I'll show you where the lab safety shoes to check in, risk waiver, and we'll start dry lab one. But we're going to end it quickly today. I want you guys on the road getting home. Next week is going to be dry lab as well. And again, I apologize for the mathiness of this first 2 or 3 weeks. It's just the nature of the beast. And if you're not prepared mathematically for this class, you will not. It's just the way it is. So, if you take, who's going to take 1A? Okay. If you did not have this class, everything we're doing up to about here, you'll do in 2 weeks. They assume it's for you. And many move really fast. And that's where most of the people drop out of 1A. It's the first 2 or 3 weeks. Okay, and interestingly, when I first saw the holiday, I was going, we're getting off on Valentine's Day? Who knows why we have a holiday that weekend?
President's Day.
President's Day, yeah. Not Valentine's Day. I had to double check that. I said, how can that be right? Okay, so any questions about the lab schedule? This won't change probably at all. And the biggest change on this schedule from last semester is the very last lab. Is a dual lab. So I had the choice of doing over spring break a dry lab. And this is a hard dry lab. Or doing part A and part B in one day. I checked with a lot of my colleagues and they said it's very doable. So what I did is this is a dual lab, like 15 and 16, and I moved everything down one. So you don't have a dry lab over break. I'd rather have you work on extra credit or something else. Now, I haven't talked about extra credit for tests. Now, in your time at school, frequently you're given assignments to do research and write a paper and blah, blah, blah. In here, that's extra credit. And the topic is up to you. And it's worth a 50% rebate on your lowest test score. So say you got a 60% on your lowest test score. And they gave you 50% back. How much is that? 80. Well, 20 and 60 and 80. So you miss 40%. Half of 40 is 20. Assuming it's a good paper and a good poster, you would get your score to go from 60 to an 80. A D to a B. You can do that one. And it's due any time in the semester. You can do it this weekend if you want. I can't assign it until after I see 5 of your tests because it applies to the lowest test. Now, the cool thing about that is you get to choose a topic. I've been doing this for almost 2 decades. And students have gotten some really cool topics. For example, one student is really into guitars. So he did a unit on string corrosion. What is that? How does that affect the tonality of the instrument? Another did it on, she was into violins, she did it on the the varnish used on the body of the violin, how that affected the sound quality. And it's strictly, I need to see chemistry when they do that. But it's whatever, another person did it on dime. What's the chemistry of dime? Why does brain mortis set in? Why does it go away? Off the wall stuff. Who's heard of Manuka honey? Anyone? Okay, why is Manuka honey good? Besides tasting sweet.
I think it's the type of flowers they use to pollinate the trees.
The tea flower in New Zealand. What about? Okay, two of my students did theirs on Manuka honey. And there are healing properties in Manuka honey it's over and above regular honey. It's got antibiotics in it. It's got all kinds of cool stuff in it. I didn't know about Manuka honey until my students did a paper on it. So I love posters because I learned stuff from you all the time. Another student got in an accident. She was a horse rider. The horse fell on her and she messed up, passed her head and messed up, and she had a limp after that. And so she did a paper on how calcium affects your muscle response. So she did it on something very personal and got credit for it at the same time. So rarely, excuse me, rarely in your class you have an opportunity to study something you're interested in and get points for it. So be thinking about that. A topic you might want to explore. And what it basically is, you have to do a poster and a 1,000-word essay. 1,000-word essay is pretty short. Yeah.
If that was certain amount of sources for it.
Yeah.
Or-
No. Question is, you have to do a presentation. You show me the poster and you and I talk about it. So no stress. I had one class in Olympia, and it's an organic class, and it was kind of a small class, I think about like 20 in the class. And they got really into it. Really into it. So they all decided to do the presentations to the class. I've never had that happen before. Normally everyone wants no part of that, right? They would meet as a group, they would say the whole class. We have they send me pictures, email, they had bottles of wine, they had potluck and stuff. It was really a cool group. They had on their posters, they had things like blinking neon light or LEDs and all kinds of stuff. It was really fun. Really fun. So anyway, my point is that it's an opportunity to one, get extra credit, two, study something you're interested in, and hopefully you will enjoy that study. But literally, I've had people do on ballistics, like what makes a good explosive. What's the difference between gunpowder and a plastic explosive? Okay, there's a paper on it. So again, whatever your interest is, probably you're going to have more than an opportunity to come up with a topic that you're truly interested in. And that's what I want, is people who are interested in the topic. And if you don't care, I can just assign you to do sodium benzoate or caffeine. Oh, no. Everyone does those. Okay, does that make sense? And again, the extra credit you can do starting this weekend. Okay, so any questions about labs, grading, how to get hold of me, anything like that? Okay. Okay, I want to cover two topics. And these topics are going to be covered on your lab this weekend. Scientific, sig figs and scientific notation. And you probably had scientific notation in your past, but significant figures you probably haven't had. Who's had sig figs in their life? High school, yeah, about a third or so, okay. All right, so let's talk about, and I've always abbreviated them, sig figs or SF, because significant figures is too long to write. I go SF. Okay, what is the concept of significant figures? The key is in measurement. So as science people and engineers, we're always measuring something. We have some kind of an instrument to measure some kind of quantity. And some of those are better than others. For example, I cook a lot. And so I've got a lot of instruments in my kitchen. One is a digital count. And when we compare the digital balance we have in our lab here versus the one we have at home, which do you think is better? One in the lab. And that's because the significant figures are higher than one in the lab. So whenever we measure anything, keep looking outside for the rain. Still looking dry. So whenever we measure anything, there's some kind of a measurement error inherent in the instrument. So and then when we do an operation like adding or multiplying, we have to apply some rules based upon the inherent precision of each of those members of that problem versus the answer. I'm going to cover that as well today. Okay, so sig figs have to do with precision of the measurement. Okay, so we're going to come up with some rules now. If I have, for example, if I have a number and I asked you, how many sig figs do you think that number has? How many do you think it's got? Okay, I hear 3. Sounds good. What else? 6. Okay, 3's correct. How about that one? Okay, that's correct. How about that? You said something other than 2. 5. Okay. How much? Anything else? Okay. Okay, let's see. Okay, now, most of these are reasonable. Notice I always write a 0 before the decimal point if the number is less than 1. Start doing that. Start doing that. The reason why is if there's a 0 in front of the decimal point, we know for sure that number is less than 1. If there's no 0 there and just a dot, that could be a drop of water splashed from your sink onto your lab notebook and create a dot. We don't know if that number is truly less than 1 or not. 0 point means for sure it's less than 1. And there's been some medical tragedies over the last 20, 30 years in hospitals that before they did electronic meds recording, they had some issues with this. And at the Swedish hospital in Washington State, a baby died because of the dosage, because of the decimal point mess up, died. So it's important, regardless of what your career field is, 0 in front. You'll see when you see the lab write-ups, you'll notice all the lab write-ups in 0 point, 0 point. And I will almost 99.999% of the time I write 0 point as well. Okay, so zeros are an issue. It seems kind of an anomaly of how zeros can change the significance of these numbers. Okay, so there are 3 situations. Okay, so we've got beginning or leading. We've got beginning or leading zeros. They never count. Zero 0.0031, 2 sig figs. So these zeros don't count. Okay, but they're in the middle. They always count, no exceptions. So we have 101, we have 3105, 0 counts, 102. So the zeros in the middle always count. Now the tricky part is end or trailing zeros sometimes count. Okay, if there's a decimal point anywhere in the number, beginning, end, whatever, the zeros at the end count. So, 0.10036. And there's a decimal point on that number, so the trailing zeros count. No decimal point, they don't count. So these rules are very straightforward. Beginning ones never count. Middle ones always count. Decimal point means they count at the end. No decimal point means they don't count. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, now, it's like, so what? We look at two kinds of operations. Adding and subtracting. Subtracting is the inverse operation of addition. Division is the inverse operation of multiplication. So these are one and the same. So how do we treat adding and subtracting? Unfortunately, these are very different rules depending on the operation. Adding and subtracting, all we're looking at is the number of decimal places. So if we put that into our calculator, we're going to get 1.33. Right? However, that's wrong. The answer is 1.3. So less always wins with precision. One place, two places. The answer is going to be one place. We round to that number. 3 is 0 to 4. We drop it. 5 to 9, we add 1. Okay? Subtraction, the same thing. Okay. Calculator says 205 is the answer. Okay, so we have 2 places, 0 places. So our answer is going to have 0 places. So the answer is 2. So we go around now. We go to the next place. Doesn't matter what is over here. Only the next place. These can be 5, 9, 9, 9, 9, 9, 9, 9. It doesn't only matter. The only thing that matters is the next place. The next place is 0. That's 0 to 4, so we drop it. Now again, we're not in math class. In math class, the answer would be 205. Not in math. Science class, and we're measuring something. So we might have measured this in the lab, 3.05 grams. I went home and measured on my balance. I got 1. This is more precise than this one. So always take the least precise number, which is this one. That dictates the answer. Okay, so adding and subtracting, 99% of the time in this class, we're going to be multiplying and dividing, not adding and subtracting. But if we do have to add and subtract, these are the rules. Okay, this reasonable? Okay, let's do multiply and divide. Okay, so I'm going to put this in my handy dandy calculator. My calculator says 2.625 is the answer. Okay, so with multiplication division, we look at the total number of sigs for each number. So how many sig figs is 1.25? 2.1. So our answer is going to have 2 sig figs, not 4. So you go to the third place, which is a 2. That's 0 to 4, so we drop it. So our answer is 2.6. And that applies to division as well. So on your dry line, you're going to see some operations with 2 columns. One column is going to be addition, subtraction. The column to the right is going to be multiplication, division. So just make sure you use the proper operation. Each one. Now we're going to be doing this side for the rest of the semester. Your answer has to have the proper sig figs in it, otherwise I'm going to ding you. And have the proper units as well.
If it was 2.65, would you put 2.7 or 2.65?
2.7. And her answer, her question was, what if my handy dandy calculator and that is the answer. Okay. 2 sig figs, we go to the third place. It's 5 or more, so that kicks the 6 up to a 7. Still 2 sig figs, but because of the 5, it kicked it up. Now, in some schools, whenever you have a 5, sometimes they round differently. If it's even, they do one thing. If it's odd, they do another. Okay, in this school, we don't do that, but some schools, if you transfer, may do that. So for example, we may say all even numbers go down. The reason for that is that statistically, there's half and half, even and odd, for that rounding error evens out. Once it's 6, those automatically up. But in our class, in fact, any science class you take in this school, 2.65 is 2.7. Okay. All right. So that's the operations using sig figs. So let's talk now about scientific notation. The purpose of scientific notation is to make awkward numbers less awkward. Now, in this slide, we're going to be using some really giant numbers. Some numbers have like 23 zeros. Giant numbers. And those kind of numbers tend to be a little on the awkward side, particularly trying to put it in your calculator, or we use scientific notation to do that. They could be equally as awkward on the small side. 0.000067 is awkward as heck in your calculator, so we convert it to scientific notation. So, this is the basis of scientific notation. Okay, the first number is from 1, not 0.9, but 1 to 9.99 ... So 2.6 falls between 1 and 9, right? So that's fine. And then it's followed by an exponential number with an exponent. That exponent is either positive or negative. It's positive if the number is greater than 1, and not in scientific notation. And negative if it's less than 1. So. Okay. And that's, by the way, a legal scientific notation number. So in our class, I'm gonna ask you, is this number awkward? It's awkward because it's a pain to put in your calculator. If it's awkward, convert it. Now, some numbers are subjectively, can go either way. In that case, it's fine to do either way. In other words, convert or not convert. But certain numbers, like this, is definitely awkward enough to convert to scientific notation. So to do that, we need to have a number from 1 to 10 or 1 to 9. So that's 1.25. And what do we do to 0.00125 to get to 1.25? We multiply or divide. We're multiplying because this is a number a lot less than 1. We have to multiply it to get it up to 1.25. Say again. So we have to make up, so this gets bigger. So then this number here needs to get smaller. Because we're renaming the number. We're just putting a new name on it. So we can't change the quantity. Quantity's got to be the same. Sig figs has got to be the same. Only thing changes is the name and how we present it. Okay, so to figure that out, we need to move this decimal place till it's like this down here. So we go 1, 2, 3. And we're going, we have to make it smaller. So that's a -3. All right. So this number is getting much bigger. That number needs to be smaller to make up for it. Okay, so we go 1, 2, 3, negative. Okay. Now, one of the exercises on your dry lab is I may give you a number like make it correct. Okay, the easiest way to do, there are 2 ways to do it. Easiest way to do it is to convert this to a non-exponential number. Okay, so that's the same as 3680. Now convert it to scientific notation, which would be 3680 times 10 to the what? Okay, decimal points here, we go 1, 2, 3. That number is getting smaller, so that number over here needs to be bigger by 3 places. That's the most, in my opinion, most straightforward way. Some of you who are used to this conversions can go, oh, it differs by 1 place. And that'll be an exercise in your dry lab. Probably the hardest one in your dry lab too, actually. Okay, so I'm gonna end this here. I'm gonna go to the lab. Now, those of you who are on the wait list, want to be in the class, and you're fairly reasonable on the wait list, I'll give you an ad number. Now to do this, you need to cancel your wait list status in the class. It won't let you add it unless it's a new ad. You've got to remove the class, change it as a wait list. Then re-add the class in a copy for admin. Okay? All right. And I'm going, now it's gonna take me a few minutes to, break this all down. We're in room,